And yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to our virtual coronavirus Q&A.
Yeah.
So happy to have you.
It's nice to see you. I think that you are the last person that I hugged before going into self-quarantine.
You're definitely the last person I hugged before quarantine, so I'm fine.
Good.
Not sick, so
Good.
yay.
I'm glad.
Um, so I have some questions that I made. I also have some questions that were crowdsourced.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so that's exciting.
Yeah. Who
So
are these people?
what was it? His name was Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Great.
but he sent me a pretty extensive list, and we actually matched up on some of them. So that's really exciting.
Wonderful.
So our first question for you is basically just like, what is your book about? Like, let folks know who haven't read your work yet. And poetry is never like about anything
Mm.
specific, I guess. But how would you describe this collection to someone who's never read it before?
Yeah, so the kernel for this collection was what I see around me in this city. Um, it's Seattle, Washington, so it's undergoing this very rapid change. And there's a lot of great things that come out of that. You know, there's a lot of goods and services available. There are lots of jobs for people who are working in the service industry. There are lots of jobs for people in the tech industry. But what's going on right now is that people are being pushed out of their housing because of this sort of elevated spike in property value. So I'm writing about the cost to this very beautiful and growing place,
Yeah.
while also giving it a little bit of flavor about being a love story and being in love in a city, and having the juxtaposition of those two things um, be two things that draw me forward through life. Sort of this love and care for other people, whether I know them or not.
Do you feel generally pretty inspired by your surroundings, like Seattle, or just places that you've been before?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm being inspired mostly by my surroundings and mostly by experience. Um, so, what inspires me about Seattle is um, it's hard to describe. I guess anything that would be inspiring about a metropolis
Yeah.
is that there are so many different stories that all come together. There are so many different people, and for the most part, we all want to be here and take care of each other. Um, so uh, it's funny when you ask about inspiration. I feel like um, when I travel is when I get my best material, I guess, because
Yeah.
it's new stuff. It's something that I haven't experienced before, and it expands my perspective, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, totally. I always feel really inspired by places that, we carry so much attachment with different spots in the world. So I like that your book does that a lot. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. I was flipping through your book and I noticed that almost none of the poems are similar in form.
Oh,
Um, you play with form a lot. So I just wanted just a pretty general question. Talk about form. How does it affect your poems? Why do you play with form so much? Little general poetry question.
yeah. Well, mostly because it's fun. uh, there's, I mean, my editing process is pretty extensive. And I encourage other poets to take a look at their work and see how they can edit it and how the poem can speak to them and change through the editing process. Um, I'm working on a piece right now about something that happened to me while I was in San Antonio for AWP, and I didn't really understand what it was, and through writing this piece, I've gotten it, and it's a realization that it's something that I knew, but now I'm beginning to experience, without getting too specific. But so the forms, when I'm forming the piece, I start with the look of it on the page and how
Yeah.
that serves the content,
Mhm.
because that those things are related, and there's something that poetry can do specifically, as opposed to fiction writing, or
Right.
even, I don't know, journal writing. You get this shape that tells your readers things to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think so much can be conveyed through white space.
Mm.
And you use that a lot in your poetry to convey different things. So I was just like, wow, so many. There's one side by side that these two at Fifth and Madison in April. So folks can see they look so different. I know you can barely see on this computer, but
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll add it in post.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah.
so at Fifth and Madison was intended as this constrained piece. It started out, of course, as a free write, as
Mhm.
everything that I have does. So, in a little journal, sort of spread out all over the place. And then I realized that this, I was writing about a soundscape, and I'm writing specifically about a skyscraper that's being built, and the soundscape around that. So I want that sort of chaotic place to be contained, because
Yeah.
that's also what makes me feel cared for in this city, is this like sense of containment, right? You can walk down the street, you walk between skyscrapers, and there's buildings on either side, and you're safe.
Yeah.
um you know so at Fifth and Madison was specifically meant um, to convey that feeling visually.
Yeah. That's
Um,
really cool.
Thanks. I do gravitate a lot towards couplets, I think. I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you gravitate towards in your writing or your reading? What pulls you?
I mean, I always love a good fluid poem. So I love when you do things like I really love how this one like flows to page and has like some movement within it. Like even trying to find a different one that you did. Even waiting for the 4:15 and how it kind
Mm.
of travels along the page. I like that because I like when your eyes can kind of dance around. As far as my own writing, I don't write poetry, so I have no specific style, but I really love reading things that are different page to page. So I noticed that immediately with your work. But
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, the waiting for the 4:15, that sort of swoop across the page.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's when the the character, the speaker, is sort of going off on this like bubbly utopia rambling rant about how much she loves Amsterdam, and so like that swoop is meant to
Yeah.
convey that sort of you know uh, out outpouring of words that don't mean a whole lot. I
Right. Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Sort of a tangent, but it works. I like it.
Thank you.
So Andrew wants to know, and I want to know obviously, but what is uh, like when do you write? How do you write? Do you have a specific place in your house? How do you just like sit down? I know it's hard for me to just tell myself I'm gonna be creative and get to it.
Yeah.
Do you have a process? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I do have a practice. It's not as stringent as other writers' practices, just because when when those ideas are percolating, they need time.
Yeah.
So with that practice, at the top of the day, I'll always start by reading.
Mm.
And I'll read with my tea
Oh,
and sit in usually the same chair every day with that book. It's not always poetry. Right now, I'm reading a great book called The Man Who Couldn't Stop, which is about a man with obsessive compulsive disorder, and
oh, yeah,
he's a famous travel writer journalist who is exploring both his own experience with this and also uh, the historical relationship with obsessive compulsive disorder. So topical books as well as books of
sure.
poetry. And I'll sit with my notebook next to me, and if something comes up, I will start writing. I I often free write. I'm really bad with word counts, but it's probably about 150 words. Um, it's like the length of 2 pages in my journal is usually where
Sure.
an idea begins and ends for me,
Yeah.
which then turns into more or less during the editing process. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess my living room is a start of the day, and then I often will go out into the world and write there. I like the gray noise of the city.
I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah.
yeah. So uh, this has been an interesting week in forming a new practice.
Yeah.
It's
I was just gonna ask that.
yeah, it's like a little mini retreat. Of course, it's not fun in the same way because we are in our homes for this very serious reason.
Yeah.
Um, but it feels a little bit like a time when some friends and I will get a house somewhere, like get a little Airbnb and go away for a couple days. It
Yeah.
has that kind of flavor right now. We'll see where we
Yeah.
are in a couple weeks.
I know. I'm like, oh, right now it's kind of nice. I'm reading all the books and
Mhm.
wearing all the sweatpants, but we'll
Mhm.
see. But I'm glad that you're still maintaining a writing practice during this time. But and I
Yeah,
know
I mean,
you have like a month coming up too of like post surgery. So like are you working on anything new? Are you planning something significant? Or are you just like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna relax and veg. Um, yeah.
yeah, I thank you for asking about that. I do have a plan for recovery writing. Um, Fortunately, this surgery is an elective surgery, and unfortunately, the University of Washington has postponed all non-essential surgeries.
Oh,
So, um, nothing coming up right now. But uh, I plan to, hang out on my couch with my book next to me as usual,
yeah,
and uh, really write about the what I'm experiencing in the moment, I guess, with that recovery, because that is um, a big a big part of health. I think is remaining mindful of where you are, what your body is doing, and what it
yeah,
needs.
yeah,
So,
totally.
I mean, we'll see where it goes. I might end up watching far too much Shrill, but
Yeah, I mean, who really knows? I'm trying not to put too many projects on a list and just enjoy some time.
mhm.
So, but speaking of our quarantine, do you have any poetry book suggestions that are obviously not your book,
Mhm.
um, but things to recommend to folks at home. We're all at home.
Yeah, Natalie Diaz just came out with her new book. I haven't gotten my hands on a copy yet, but her first book, which is My Brother is an Aztec,
Mhm.
is sorry. I got the title wrong. It's When My Brother Was an Aztec.
Okay.
Her first book is just tremendous. Speaking of writers who write in form, she really she writes in sort of these more traditional poetic forms in addition to free
Mhm.
verse.
Oh, nice.
She's the master of a pantoum, and I think she even has a sestina in there. Um,
Nice.
yeah, she's it. Natalie
That's cool.
Diaz, top of the
Very cool.
list. Um, what's on my shelf right now? Um, I just picked up a copy of 32 Poems,
Yeah.
which I really am in love with all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I would say it depends on what you like. Uh,
I mean, it's so hard to recommend books to folks.
yeah.
Yeah.
One book that I think everybody needs to read is Deaf Republic by Ilya Kaminsky.
I haven't heard of that.
Oh wow. So it's this fictional story of a town that, as an act of resistance, intentionally goes deaf, and
Oh.
the line sort of blends between whether or not they actually are deaf, but the event that begins this deafness is, and I should mention before I go any further that Ilya Kaminsky himself is a deaf poet. Um, there's an event that starts this where a soldier kills a child because the
Okay.
child can't hear the soldier telling him to stop. Um, and so Kaminsky has a cast of characters in the book. It's almost like a play, but the
Hmm.
stories are told through poems from various
Yeah.
perspectives.
I'm sorry. There's like some
That's all
sort of
right.
thing going on. I don't know what that is, but
Oh,
hmm, fun.
smoke detector?
I think so. I don't know. We're not gonna focus on it.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
but yeah. Well, that is all the questions I have for you, and I don't want to keep this too long. But thank you so much for meeting with me virtually.
Yeah, of course.
And you have some poems coming out too for the public to hear virtually as well. And then we're postponing your event. Lynn had a reading at Third Place Books in Ravenna, and we are going to plan that as soon as we are all free and safe to do so.
Yeah,
Do
I'm
you have
looking
any?
forward to that.
I know, I'm so excited, and I'm
Yeah,
glad that they really wanted to have us too. That was really kind. So it'll happen. But yeah, stay healthy and sane. Um,
I wanted to ask you what was next for Papichu.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. We had a sex education book coming out in May. That is postponed.
yeah.
Um, Papichi Review issue 4 comes out in June. I don't know. I don't want to do any more virtual releases though. I
Hmm.
really want people to be able to um, be present for them. So
Yeah,
um,
it's huge. Being in a room with someone reading a poem is so different than watching someone read it online.
yeah, so we're just waiting right now.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's pretty much what Pichu's doing and trying to, keep going. We have a bunch of books right now, and Betsy Jordan's book, "Keep Your Eyes on Your Own Paper," just came out, which is our first nonfiction title. So just trying to keep momentum going. But yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Well, congratulations on all of your publications, and thank
yeah,
you so much for this one. Um,
yes.
I can't tell you how much it means to me to have this in the world.
It means so much to me too, Lynn, and I'm so excited to finally gather some folks whenever we're out of here. But I'm just so glad that we can do this virtually, and I don't know, hopefully just people tune in and we'll see what we got.
Yeah,
But thank you so much for being a Papichu poet.
cool. Well,
Well, all right. Well, best and stay well and lots of love and virtual hugs and all that.
awesome.